Hello, friends, followers, and fellow realtors. Welcome to the Waves podcast created by the Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. We designed this podcast for realtors to help innovate, educate, and elevate their real estate practice, one ripple at a time. Our goal is to help navigate the waves of the industry and dive into local trends, topics, and beyond by interviewing experts that add value to our mission. Think of us as your proverbial life jacket to keep you afloat in these crazy times. We hope to make a splash in your day.
Hey, welcome to the Waves podcast. I'm Will Gilliam, your host, and I'm telling you, we have a really good show lined up for you today. We have a really special guest, a VIP. That's all I'm going to say about that, a VIP. Big name. So our guest today is a former, I'm going to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. She's right here and she might smack me. This is really good. Our guest is a former chairman of the Board of Texas Realtors, former regional vice president of the National Association of Realtors, former chair of the Amarillo Association of Realtors, and an owner of a successful real estate brokerage in Amarillo. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you here. Cindi, we have some really great questions. We're excited to meet you, have you here on this Waves podcast. So, you're well known across the industry as a dynamic leader, speaker, highly talented woman. But for those who might not know, you can start by telling us a little about your journey in this crazy world of real estate and leadership.
Sure. Well, I don't know if I can outdo what you just said about it, because that sounded pretty impressive to me. So.
Well, I didn't read all the stuff that about you. It's like, man, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be a 3-hour podcast.
I am delighted to be here, and I appreciate the question. And it mirrors a lot of our realtors out there. It mirrors their journeys as well. I started in an area of the business that wasn't directly related to sales and brokerage.
Right.
I was in the mortgage end of it. I also spent some time in the banking end of it and as a mortgage broker. And ultimately, the rubber met the road for me at the client relationship that is built at the level where the realtor is, where that practitioner is. And that ended up being my first love and where I migrated. So in 2006, I opened a brokerage of my own. And I actually admitted this in a class I was in earlier today. For the first 10 years I had my license, I didn't understand, appreciate, or even know about the realtor organization. I was a member, I was paying my dues, but I don't think that I understood what it was or what it did or how it affected communities and the consumers that all of us serve. So when I opened my own business, I got more involved in that and began to realize what a powerful organization it was. And then since then, I have been laser focused as a part of the investment I made in my business to investing in volunteering for the realtor organization at all levels.
So that's awesome. So you covered all the gamuts of the real estate. I'm going to call it triangle: banking, mortgage, real estate, brokerage. So what inspired you to I need to go further, go into leadership roles with Texas Realtor Association and NAR? Wow. Mm-hmm. What inspired you? I guess you need the square. You're a triangle. Now you want to be, I don't know. Tell us about what inspired you to do that.
Simon Sinek says we always need a why. And I think our whys sometimes change over the years, and mine certainly did. What inspired me is what I hear over and over across the state as I travel and teach, and that is someone that I respected asked me. And so my initial why was very much ego-driven. Why so-and-so likes me and thinks I could be good at that. So my ego says yes before I even know what it is. But then you get involved, and in this organization, Will, the level of influence and specifically community effort, the things that we see that this organization does to lift up not just its members, but the most important people in the members' lives, which is the consumers they serve, the communities they serve. You start seeing what it does. And then after that, it's not ego, and it's not, you do want to give back, but it's not that. It's like, I need to be there. This is a member-driven organization, so the members have to drive.
Right. I can relate to that because I remember when I first got into real estate, I didn't know squat. I got my license. I bought a real estate company, like some of you guys know. I bought a real estate company. A month later, I got my license. A little backwards. And I didn't know anything. And I'm the owner and I just didn't know anything. So I would go to the board all the time because I had no idea. And then next year, I'm a director. And then 6 years later, I'm the president. So I can relate to that. But it's when you start getting into that leadership, you start seeing your eyes are opened. And like Tree Pack, for example, please, we got to learn to invest in our business. But it inspires you to go a little more because you meet people. And like my coach, Michael Bird, always says, get in the room with the big people. Get a seat at the big table.
Yeah.
And so obviously you've been at the big table, and that's got to be really a cool thing.
It is a cool thing, and it's a privilege because in a member-driven organization, just like think about it with our government, it is designed to be citizen-driven.
We the people.
If you're given the privilege of representing those members or those citizens in a room where they are not there, I mean, they have entrusted you with a level of their outcomes, their success. It's a heavy thing, and it's a privilege, an indescribable privilege. And when you're entrusted with that, you want to do more, and you get in this room and you know things that you didn't know before, and then you want to be in the next room, and you want to be, because you always aspire to be that person that is the game changer that says that's not what the people want, or that's not what the members want, or the consumers, if we do what's best for us right now, but it's not in the best interest of the consumers, then we're thinking short term, not long term, and entrepreneurs that are successful think long term. And so I'm in the world right now that's arguing or making the case to anyone who will listen that realtors and this specific organization has been in the consumer service business as its highest calling since it was organized more than a century ago.
Right. You know, the real estate industry has faced a lot of significant changes in recent years and shifts. 2024, wow, what a crazy year. And what do you see as some of our biggest challenges facing us 2025 and beyond?
So a lot of people, I think, would answer that well, talking about the changes that we've experienced, the practice changes that we've had to implement in the last few years in response to some of the consumer-driven requirements. And we've got a lot of members out there, and certainly a lot of misguided media sources out there who would say they just had this big, huge shift in the way they do business. But I would argue that we really didn't. Specifically, we practice here in Texas. We've done the buyer's agency thing in Texas forever, and we've done a really good job of being extremely transparent with our consumers. And again, putting them first, even before our own interests, because ultimately, our interests are their interests. When they win, we win. And we've been really good, especially here in Texas, at recognizing that all along. So when we say, well, now everything's changed because we have to do this and this and this, those are the things we were doing all along.
Yes. And, that's a lot of people say, oh, and then this NAR thing has really changed. And I thought, really? I mean, I think it's just kind of elevated our profession to some degree. And I always tell people, well, get with the program. It's really not that much different. Just do what we're supposed to do, what's required of us. And it's always put your people first.
Exactly.
So, I mean, a lot of people are freaking out. And, I mean, how would you encourage some of the realtors that are sticking with it to navigate some of these hurdles? What would you suggest?
So what I would start with is that we cannot overreact, and we cannot let someone else drive our narrative. The media sells clicks and headlines. And so I'm not saying that the media is naturally going to be false, but if you only read the headline, you're not going to get the whole story. And so what I would encourage our members to do is be genuine, be real, and tell the whole story. And we've got to make the public, whose trust we earned over a century ago, we've got to make sure that we sustain that trust by addressing every concern. And if they read some headline in the New York Times that says realtors have taken advantage of them in one way or another, we can't just be defensive and deny it. We can go back to the beginning and we can say, here's our relationship. Here's what we talked about. Here's how we did it then. Here's how we're doing it now, to double down on that transparency.
Right.
And most importantly is, here's why we're an investment, not an expense.
Right.
If I come to you as a consumer and I say, I'm going to provide you a service and it's going to be for this amount of money, and in exchange for this amount of money, these are the services I'm going to deliver. The case we've always had to make to that consumer is that we're worth it.
Right.
It's not that it's a good investment, that
Right.
they're going to make or save more than we cost. And that's always been what we've had to do.
I totally agree. And I tell everybody, I tell my agents, we have to, today in this climate, you know, the NAR climate, I'm going to just call it the NAR climate, we need to demonstrate our value. And we've never really done that. We've just taken it for granted. Here, sign this. And now the news, the media likes bad news. And so all the people see is it's all fake news. So they see one thing and they come to us and say, what about that? Mm-hmm. What do you know? Questions are the answers. Tell me about what you heard. Tell me this. We need to be informed. We need to stay up. And like you mentioned a word just a few minutes ago, entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. Most realtors they don't think entrepreneurial at all. This is a business and we need to treat it like a business, and we need to stay up like doctors. And I mean, yes, we have our little continuing education, but come on. Mm-hmm. If there's a lawsuit or something out there, please know how to spell NAR. Please just know that. And there's so many resources to find out. So many people are now trying to sell you things about the Cliff Notes or the cheat sheet. Learn that. Know what? Because when you're going to get blindsided, and you right off the bat, you're starting on the wrong foot. Provide value. So this recent NAR settlement has been a hot topic. In your view, what are the biggest challenges? Have we kind of already covered that, you think?
The biggest challenges, I would say for sure, are perception.
Yep.
Because for whether you're a consumer or a member, right now there's a perception that is not necessarily accurate.
Right.
Certainly NAR has faced some challenges, and they've had some missteps, some important missteps that any organization that is comprised of 1.5 million separate entrepreneurs is going to trip over its own feet.
Right.
Sometimes. And we've done that, and I don't mean to minimize it, because it happened. We failed to own our own narrative.
Right.
I don't think, I never have believed, and don't today, that we were guilty of any kind of antitrust violations or any of the things that lawsuit accused us of. Mm-hmm. But what we are guilty of is letting other people own our narrative and not having those direct conversations with our consumers to make sure that they already knew how it worked, and they didn't just read the headline and take the bait.
Right.
Now, we survey our consumers every year. NAR surveys between 18 and 25,000 consumers a year, buyers and sellers. Mm-hmm. And over again, for years, not just recently, but for years, including the most recent years, they tell us that they trust and admire and are happy with their realtor, but realtors in general don't have as much esteem for. And that tells us that the generic narrative we need to work on.
Right.
But it does tell us that in most cases, our consumers are happy with the level of services and what they paid for their agent or for their broker. And what we have to do is just continue to double down on the value and the transparency.
Right.
If we stay on top of that and stay calm, so we want to be real and we want to be personal, but let me tell you something we don't want to be.
Right.
So if we're out running around with our hair on fire going, oh no, they've accused us of this, and oh no, we're in big trouble, and oh no, or if we act really defensive, imagine your surgeon standing at the edge of your bed going, oh my gosh, I don't know what we're going to do. This is a mess.
Right.
And it's not my fault, and being very defensive. You don't want to see that. So we all have to approach everything as an entrepreneur. Okay, what can we do to fix this? Yeah.
You mentioned bait, and I was thinking clickbait, because I see articles just about every day, I'm trying to keep up, keep my finger on the pulse of the community. What is the consumer saying about us? You know, NAR definitely has a black eye from this. You know, let's not. It's a fact.
Yes.
You know, and our job is to, you know, continually train. I think training is really important. And I don't know if it's still the same, but 97% of the business in real estate is done by 3% of the realtors. That's huge. And so no wonder the consumer may be a little leery of us, especially in light of the NAR lawsuit and all that. It's like, and that when these other realtors that may do 1 or 2, 3 deals a year, they don't know. They don't keep up. They don't train. They're not professional salespeople by no means. They don't listen. They're all about the deal.
If we could go back and do it again, if we could roll the clock back 10 years and do it again, I would advocate for NAR to spend a lot more of its resources telling consumers about the choices they've always had.
Yeah.
There's a narrative out there that suggests that only recently do they have a choice.
Right.
Only recently, because of the lawsuit, could they negotiate or choose a realtor based on qualifications and pricing. But that's always been true.
It's always.
Unfortunately, we didn't go out and get in front of that narrative and remind the consumer over and over again. We spent millions of dollars trying to educate the consumer on the difference between a licensed real estate practitioner and a realtor. And I'm not sure our consumers understand that to this minute, but there is a huge difference. If you're a consumer, there's a huge difference.
Right.
But what we didn't do is say, and oh, by the way, you have a choice and you need to interview a few brokers before you make a decision. They have different pricing and different levels of service. And if you're a consumer, you may need or want one level at one price, and your consumer next door might need or want pricing and services at a different level.
Right.
So we have minimum services that we must provide as licensees, but the rest of us are as different as any other two entrepreneurs in any other business.
Right.
And the pricing has always been different.
Yeah. You know, I've been probably the last 6 months talking to the sellers in particular. They say, so I don't have to pay you a commission these days? Where'd you hear that? Well, it's that NAR thing. What do you know? Well, they can't tell me. They just saw something negative or whatnot. I said, look, nothing's really changed, in my opinion. I simplify it. Nothing's really changed. It's all been negotiable. Everything in the contract, everything is negotiable. Nothing's changed.
Yeah. And I would take that a step further and say, if you're an entrepreneur in any business, forget about it being the real estate business, in any business, in a free capitalism-based country, how many times is it okay with us for our government to come in and say, you can't charge that amount. You have to do it this way. Now, rules, transparency, capable, qualified professionals to provide services, that's a government role. But when the government says you can't or can charge this, or even if there's a settlement like there has been that suggests that we have to do things a certain way, that's all fine. But that's the way it always was.
Right.
Nobody, not my realtor membership, nor my government, has ever told me how much I needed to charge my consumers.
Right.
I have decided based on my overhead and what those consumers thought I was worth.
Right.
So that's where I'm going. Is negotiable is the word of the day right now. And so when we talk about compensation being negotiable, it is negotiable, but as the entrepreneur selling the service, that doesn't mean you get to tell me what I'm selling my service for.
Right.
You get to tell me that you don't want to hire me or
Right.
I'm not worth that.
Right.
That's the consumer role, and that is what makes it negotiable, that you might want to talk to a different broker.
And you know, and I tell my agents, you don't have to take every listing because if they're mean or hateful or whatnot, they become my mean, hateful people, and I have to deal with them too. Let's just take the people that want to work with you.
Right.
And so if they're not that way, the chemistry's not there, move on. Let somebody else, because it's just going to be rough, and it's already kind of hostile. Let's just kind of So changing the subject for just a minute. Well, it's not really changing the subject, but this is really a good question. Looking ahead, where do you see NAR in the next 5 to 10 years, and what should be its top priorities to remain relevant and effective in changing real estate landscape?
So the NAR members will determine this. And I talk to them every day. I'm out and about all over the state, all over the nation. I'm really in that space right now.
Yeah.
And while the headlines are talking about massive droves of agents opting out
Right.
of their membership, that's actually not what's happening. What's happening is our members have been mobilized and they are realizing what we realize as citizens, and that is it's a member-run organization. It's not them, it's us.
Right.
It's got a problem, or it had a problem. It's been working on that problem nonstop for the last 5 years. It's moving in the right direction. And it's powerful and it's influential and it serves this incredibly great purpose
Yeah.
for its communities and its citizens. It's worth saving. So I see it 5 years from now stronger than ever, with lessons learned that it won't soon forget.
Yeah, we don't want to repeat those. Okay, so all the things you've done and held some of the really influential positions, leadership roles in our industry, what has been the most important lessons you've learned about leading during these times of change?
Probably the most important one is the difference between a leader and a CEO. The difference between someone who serves members,
Right.
like I did, and someone who runs a business. And usually when we have issues in member organizations like ours, member-driven organizations, it's that some well-intended leader mistakes that role for a boss or a CEO.
Right.
It's very, very different.
Right.
In one way, you answer to all of them. So the further up the line you go, the more people you answer to, because you never stop being a servant.
Right.
Same thing with public service. Look at our congressmen and our senators and those people that go into public service. It's not that they're above us. They serve us. And the best among us understand the difference between a CEO and a leader. And I'm not sure I knew that from the beginning, but our members will remind us when we forget.
Yeah. All right, so there's some really great questions here. I just want to make sure I hit some of these. And with you being here, wow. This lady is just phenomenal. All right, what legacy do you hope to leave in the real estate industry? And who or what continues to inspire you today?
So I don't know that I think that much about legacy, because I'm always just thinking about getting to the next thing. Yeah, we're too young. But I will say the other day I was in a room and I was talking about the why. Why did you get in? And I was going around the room, and in the room, this one person's name was mentioned about 15 times out of 25 as, well, so-and-so asked me. So-and-so inspired me, and so made it look so like such a good investment of time and so much fun, because you can't forget the fun. This is serious business we're in, but the fun is important. Though. And I remember thinking, wow, I hope someday in a room where I'm not, my name gets mentioned like her name just got mentioned. So yeah, if I'm going to let my ego drive for a minute, that would be awesome.
Yeah. You know, Cynic, he has that great book, Your Why. You know, it all starts with why. And my coach is always saying, we need to do that introspection and find out what we're really good at. What's our skills? What's our superpower? And hone that and perfect that. Rory Vaden, he wrote several books, but he had that one, Take the Stairs. Great book. And he's always saying, find your skills and narrow it down to one word. I thought, wow, that's profound. And my coach is saying, when you find that, your why/purpose finds you. And I thought, okay, so I don't have to go out looking for my why. Just hone out and my why and my purpose will find me. That's cool.
Yeah,
I think
that's
so.
awesome.
I think
that's
so.
Awesome.
All right, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Perhaps a message of encouragement or a call to action for realtors?
Yeah. So, what I would say to your listeners is if you've been on the podcast this long, you already know that both of us have a passion for the realtor organization, not because our millions are made there, if we ever have them. I'm still working on that, but it'll come. Not because of the financial payback for it, but because of what it does to lay the groundwork for the most important component of living in the United States, in my opinion, and the ability to own property, to build wealth, and to pass that on, that whole legacy to our children. My why, as I told you, has changed a lot, but now I look and it's my grandchildren, and I worry every day that they won't have the same opportunities that I had. And the organization that I volunteer for appointed itself as the keepers of the American dream 100 years ago. And I can't let them down because the going has gotten really tough. But my grandkids are counting on me making sure that we find solutions to this housing affordability problem, to all of the problems out there. And the organization that you and I love and hold so dear and work so hard for is at the heart of that. When competitors work together through the Realtor Association, we're not working because we're competitors when we walk out the door, but when we're here, we're trying to find solutions so that the world is a better place. It's the same place we got to grow up in, and that's my why right now. Yeah. I've got grandchildren, and I want them to be able to own property and build wealth just like I've been able to do.
And when I was brand new, I had no idea about anything. I mean, I could barely read a contract, fill out a contract and all that. Had a mentor right off the bat. That helped. But if you don't like what you see, get involved. And get involved with our board. And I did. I mean, my first 8 years in real estate, 7 of that was on the board. Mm-hmm. And, I moved up the old chain and became the president. So if you don't like it, be part of the change. Like that bumper sticker, be part of the change.
100%.
So,
and as part of the change, make sure that when you're cycled through, you have mentored other people, and you make sure that the other people that are coming up behind you understand that they're welcome, they're appreciated, and it doesn't have to be the same way you did it.
Right.
It can be different. We have to move with the world.
When I was on the board, I always told everybody on the board, be looking for your replacement. Mm-hmm. And, recruit your replacement. And there's some guys I recruited, and they're like, thank you for me. I told him, you're going to be president one day. He wasn't even on the board. Mm-hmm. And then he became president. Like 4 or 5 years later. And it was a great thing for him, but I just saw talent, pursued it, pushed it, and he
Yeah.
And you know who you are.
If I'm a consumer, maybe I want to know why. Why couldn't you answer me today when I called? Why did you have to wait an hour before you called me back? Well, let me tell you where I was and what I was doing. Let me tell you what that organization, because we went to work for these consumers 100 years before we met them. Mm-hmm. We have been working on ownership, property ownership, the rights and the abilities and the opportunities for 100 years. And you and I pay extra to be members in that association. Mm-hmm. And then we pay more extra to be leader members in that association. Right. And we do that because we're helping to take care of their investment for another 100 years after they made it.
Absolutely. And Tree Pack, I was anti-Tree Pack when I first started because it was punitive. Mm-hmm. When we had a meeting, your phone went off, $35 fines. Like, I hate this Tree Pack thing. And then when I became president, I said, no more fines. And then at TRLP in 2011 or 12, when I actually saw what your Tree Pack dollars went and did. I thought, it's a no-brainer. Everybody, mm-hmm. I was on a crusade. Everybody pitch in, because if you really are about the consumer, prove it. Yeah. What did you contribute? And that's when you contribute there. It's not a tax write-off. Mm-hmm. It's you care. So I kind of like that. I was like, yeah, I was a major contributor. Looky here. So I'm serious. I take this serious, mm-hmm. and we all should invest in your business. Mm-hmm. And anyway, Cindi, it's such a privilege and honor to have such wisdom and insight. And your
pour on the wisdom part. Pour it on.
Your Highness, I'm going to have to throw that in there. It's so awesome that you were here. It's been a privilege, really. And we hope to bring more. We will be bringing more value-added podcasts in the future, stay tuned. Cindi, really a privilege. And just thank you for hanging out with us.
The pleasure was all
And
mine.
I guess when you said, did we go too long? When it's informative and you're learning something, it's like a good movie, man. You want to leave them wanting more. So that's what I hope we did, left you wanting more. So until then, see you then.
Bye.